We love when people think outside the box, so we've put together some of our favorite inventions from some of our most creative minds. First up, a NASA scientist who created everyone's favorite toy.
There's this amazing picture of my coworker. It's him reading a Ninja Turtles book lying next to a Super Soaker. When the Super Soaker came out, it was a game changer. The slogan, "Wetter is better," was essentially a mantra for kids during summer break. So when I went to Atlanta to interview the guy responsible for all that, I had to show him the photo.
That's funny.
Lonnie Johnson invented the Super Soaker back in 1982. But that is not his only invention.
Well, I have over 100 patents.
Everything from the Nerf gun to a thermoelectric energy converter. He also worked on NASA's Galileo mission to Jupiter and alongside the US military.
The first Super Soaker actually I made in my shop in my basement in the evenings when I would come home from work. And at the time I was actually working on the stealth bomber program back when it was highly classified. And I actually couldn't even tell my wife what I was working on during the daytime. It was that top secret.
The original name for the Super Soaker was the Drencher.
We ran into a challenge regarding the name because another inventor claimed it. So we changed the name to Super Soaker just to avoid having to deal with that.
Super Soaker is definitely a way better name. When he started, Lonnie wasn't trying to create a toy for kids.
I was working on a new type of heat pump that would use water as a working fluid instead of Freon. And I was experimenting with some nozzles that I machined. And I shot a stream of water across the bathroom, and I thought, geez, maybe I should put this hard science stuff aside and work on something fun like a water gun. It still works.
And this brings me back to a previous point. Lonnie Johnson is a super genius scientist. This is his lab.
My goal is to develop a battery that will store about 3 times the energy of a lithium-ion battery.
In comparison, the Super Soaker might not seem as hard science, but it was still a really, really important invention.
Speaking of important inventions, as technology gets better, security needs to get tougher. Today's video is sponsored by Incogni, who is specialized in securing your private data. So we decided to test out the security at Great Big Story by seeing if Archie can break into our office in the time it takes me to explain Incogni. Godspeed, Archie. Did you know that your personal data can be sold online? Things like online shopping and social media reveal our name, age, address, and contact information, and it can all be collected and sold without our knowledge. Our data can crop up in hundreds of different lists used by scammers, insurance companies, banks, and even the government. You can opt out of this, but it takes a lot of time. Which brings us to today's sponsor. Incogni is a data protection agency that can save you time and reduce the risks of your online data falling into the wrong hands. Their service helps combat potential scams, invasions of privacy, even identity theft. Rather than doing it manually, Incogni automatically files all the necessary data removal requests needed for you to take back control of your personal data. Use code GBStory at the link below and get 60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/GBstory. And if you're not completely satisfied, Incogni offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. Did you get in, Archie? You didn't. Yeah. Unlucky. Now, back to inventing. If you could make one thing in the world become a possibility, what would it be? A flamethrower out of the Henry Hoover? An organ that plays flames? What about a sausage piano? Well, look no further, because Sam Battle already made them. Sam is breathing new life into old electronics. He's taking old relics out of landfills and making them sing. Stick around to find out what other mental inventions Sam has made.
I'm Sam, look mum no computer, and this is my museum. This museum is not obsolete, bit of a mouthful.
Sam is a musician, YouTuber, and inventor of synthesizers and other amazing things. What kind of stuff have you made, Sam?
Oh yeah, the Teletubby tidal wave. You push the button and it does sort of a wave. So they all go wee and do the wave going down the line. The 1000 oscillator Megadrome, it was about designing one module that worked, which has 10 oscillators on it. That took a few rounds of getting it right. And then it was about sitting down and literally soldering that 100 times. How many hours on the 1000 oscillator Megadrome? Oh gosh, 300 hours, realistically, I think. I started tinkering with electronics, well, probably before I even did music and stuff. I took things apart when I was a kid all the time. My parents said that they started getting see-through toys to try and stop me from taking them apart because I don't know why. I don't know where I got the tools from. I must have been enabled by my dad or something to get some tools out the garage. It just kind of teaches you to mess around and not be scared to. I've been working in music for quite a while, probably since I was 20. I started my first band. It's an embarrassing time, you know, when you look back and you're young and you're playing guitar. I had like silly Mohican and wore a kilt playing guitar, running around. Yeah, it was quite funny. Whilst I was doing that, I found it fun to start figuring out electronics. I just got really obsessed and I just spent all my time in my room just figuring out circuit bending. So after that band folded, I just was like, oh, maybe I should do a video. And I made a video on tinfoil hats, making a drum machine out of tinfoil hats. And I put it up on Facebook and it went really well. Like for some reason, just it got loads of shares and whatnot. I was like, okay, maybe I should keep on doing this. And then once a month, I just did a video. So I started the Facebook. I didn't even do YouTube at that point, 2017. And then I did the Furby organ. That went really well. It was just like, boom. People were interested in Furbies.
Here it is, a synthesizer on a bike.
We're gonna make something from it. What is it? It's a microwave.
Legend has it, you can play an electric guitar straight through a light bulb.
What kind of instruments do I make? I don't really know. I like make and fix and modify all manner of things. But usually it sits around electronic and weird. Synthesizers, I don't know, every time it's different, so I'm not sure.
A synthesizer is an electronic musical instrument that generates audio signals.
I learned to build these things, well, just by myself, using the internet a lot, mostly just breaking things, and then after a time, you break less things. But I still break things.
What else have you got?
Cosmo 2.0 is my live modular rig. This is a modular synth that I've been making for donkey's years. So that's the thing I make the music on. And it's just everything kind of goes back to the modular synthesizer.
See?
Flamethrower Henry Hoover. Yeah, this was a project that I was really wanting to do. It was a bit sketchy. I was testing it one time and it was a very enclosed space and I think I might have given myself carbon monoxide poisoning at that point. But I learnt my lesson and now I'm street smart. Flamethrower organ, I searched up on eBay and found a church organ that needed pulling out. So I was like, oh my gosh. Basically what happens is the methane travels through the pipes, it goes through a solenoid, goes out the organ pipe and ignites on the pilot light that is out the organ. It was a serious undertaking. Game Boy Mega Machine. I thought the Furbies all in a mass were cool, but Game Boys were much more usable as sound-making devices. They just had a load more ability and versatility. So making basically a similar version, but the Game Boy Mega Machine. Sausage synth. Oh yeah, the first keyboard in the world. We made our own sausages, put them on prongs that were wired to a capacitive touch interface inside, which was based on an Arduino. Lots of big words, but basically what that means is when you touch it, a signal travels over to the Arduino from your electrical pulses in your body, and that turns it on, and that means you can play a musical instrument from sausages. Sometimes things are just not worth preserving because they smell like gone-off sausages.
How long does it take you to come up with and then make these inventions?
It takes a different amount of time to build each instrument. Sometimes it's quite quick, it's quite a simple idea. Everything takes a different chunk of time. The one thing that I make sure to do is I make sure that I've got enough progress to talk about in a video, whatever it is, nearly every week. I don't really write things down. I've got a list in my head of ideas that have turned up every so often, and then you wake up and you go, oh, right, it's time to build that. Your brain's really good at theorizing and making simulations of what's going to happen, but 9 times out of 10 it's not like that. So it's good to see what it actually turns out like. Sometimes it's not as good as you're expecting, sometimes way better than you're expecting.
All of Sam's mental inventions are on display at his museum in England. You can even play on all of them, like we did.
I've always wanted to make a museum. Don't know how it was going to happen, but suddenly there was a means to do it, because I had all these projects and stuff, and they were kind of like, after I'd finished these machines, I didn't really use them much, and it just felt like, what am I doing with these things? So the only real kind of sense for them was to make them publicly accessible. This is the first room. This is the 1000 oscillator mega drone that we spoke about. This is the synthesizer room, where all of the synthesizers that people can play on are. This Etch-a-Sketch that is made from an old chart recorder, some glow-in-the-dark paper, and a laser. So it's a mixture of my machines, other synthesizers and things that people might not usually play on, DIY synthesizers that other people have built, and also a load of old electronics as well to show people about electronics and obsolete electronics. MIDI-powered vibraphone. So this is the organ. We turn off the pump and listen to it die. Just wait for it to go down. It's running out of air. Why do I like building and fixing synthesizers? That's, I don't know. I just do it. It feels fun. It's now part of me that I do. Very liberating to have somewhat the skills to be able to either build or modify electronic musical instruments, because sometimes you get one and it doesn't completely do it exactly the way you want. So you can modify it a little bit. If you want to put a jack socket to have a different output to one thing, you drill a hole, pop a jack socket in. It's very freeing to be able to know you can do that if you want to.
From silly inventions to even sillier putty.
Silicone, oil, and lots of toil. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect new rubber. But James Wright accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction: boric acid. Thus, Silly Putty was born, using its ultra superpowers of bounciness, stretchiness, and silliness. Putty has dedicated its life to fighting boredom and the forces of evil.
What molds into silly animals and silly shapes?
Silly Putty?
Unless you grew up under a rock, Silly Putty was part of your childhood. But did you know that the insanely addictive toy was actually created by Scottish inventor James Wright as a rubber substitute during World War II?
Nothing else is silly putty.
James Wright's employer, General Electric, marketed bouncing putty for not very silly things at all, like hand exercises and leveling wobbly furniture. But clever marketer Peter Hodgson spotted its fun potential as a children's toy and changed its name to Silly Putty. At Easter, he sold the putty in a plastic egg. Clever, huh? The egg stuck, and it's still sold in this iconic packaging today.
Always put your silly putty back in its egg, or it will run slowly away.
Then he turned to a newfangled technology, the television, fighting off competition from the likes of Mr. Potato Head and the hula hoop.
Buy yours today at all toy, drug, and department stores. Get one, get two, get more.
So why is Silly Putty so damn fun? Stretchier than rubber! And bouncier too! 300 million units sold since the 1950s. It's even been to space. Silly Putty! The silliest toy around! Up next, find out how this man escaped from the desert.
Imagine you're driving through the hot Moroccan desert. Your car breaks down, and the nearest village is 20 miles away. Would you panic? Would you give up? Or would you convert your car into a motorbike in a lengthy process that might get you killed? Meet Emile Leray, the mechanical magician who did just that. Close to a small town in France, there is a man that loves cars.
Bonjour.
Specifically, the French Citroën 2CV, like those. And he's got this funny-looking motorbike with an extraordinary story behind it.
En 1993, je suis allé au Maroc, c'est un pays que je connais bien, j'y suis allé de nombreuses fois. Les problèmes se sont posés au niveau d'un petit village qui s'appelle Tilemzoun où les militaires m'ont arrêté. Donc ces militaires m'ont demandé de rebrousser chemin et de retourner à Tantan. Ce que je n'ai pas fait, donc j'ai simulé un retour sur Tantan. J'ai fait plusieurs kilomètres, mais malheureusement là j'ai heurté un rocher et j'ai détruit un bras de roue avant et abîmé le châssis.
Obviously, like any stranded desert traveler, Emile decided to turn the still working parts of that car into this motorbike. First, he removed the car's frame.
Cette caisse me servait, n'était pas inutile, puisqu'elle me servait d'abri, c'était ma maison. Je dormais là la nuit, voilà, en fermant les portes.
Then he shortened it to make a better chassis, fixed the axles, and put the wheels on the bike. Simple, right?
Non.
Oh yeah, he also added suspension and, well, an engine, an ignition, and a comfortable seat. After 12 days and 11 nights in the desert, he was ready to go back to civilization.
J'ai fait l'apprentissage de la maîtrise de cette machine. J'ai plié tout mon campement et je suis parti dans le désert en direction de Tantan.
Finally, to his delight, he came upon the police who greeted him with a hefty fine.
4550 dirhams, ce qui fait 450 €, parce qu'ils ont considéré que mon véhicule n'était plus conforme à la carte grise de la 2 chevaux.
Back in France, the motorcycle ended up alongside Emile's other Citroën creations, like this boat, this rugby ball, a table saw, and even glasses made out of rubber from the seat. This guy really loves the Citroëns. Makes you wonder what's next.
Pour faire beaucoup de choses, il manque plus que l'avion là pour l'instant.
Finally, take a look at the man that reinvented
the wheel. A perfect function, invented in the Stone Age. To this day, the wheel provides the same function as it did those thousands of years ago. But one man is flipping everything we knew about the wheel on its head.
My name is Michael Bertop. I'm not an engineer, but I did what most engineers wish they could. When I was a little kid, I liked to take things apart and see what they're made out of. I tried to make something new out of them. And I still like doing it to this day. In 2012, I was running an HR company and I turned on the movie Tron. I was drinking a coffee and I thought, those are very cool motorcycles in the movie. They're called light cycles and they have these hollow wheels. And I remember thinking, well, I'm not an engineer, but couldn't we do something useful with that empty space? I imagined you could put things in the wheel that lived outside of it with an electric wheel. For example, the motor and the battery. A wheel that powers itself is a much more universal wheel than a wheel that needs something else to power it. Make it super compact, super efficient, and that's really what inspired me. Pretty much everyone said it was impossible. They said that if it could be done, it would have been done already by a real engineer. So I ignored them and I quit my job. And then I met Dakota Decker, who ended up leaving SpaceX to build the wheel together with me. Dakota and I spent about 2 years before we came to the version that we put up for retail. It's a much more compact design. It takes up the same space as a regular wheel, but it's got everything in it, the entire powertrain, the battery, the motor, the computer. This wheel is extremely environmentally friendly. It's electric power, and it's a very efficient use. We have made thousands of bicycles into affordable electric vehicles all over the world. We see that we can contribute to the future of transportation with the geoorbital wheel. We see vehicles that nobody has ever made before being able to be made now. Imagine a car. Imagine the possibilities when you take all the guts out of a car because you just don't need them anymore. The opportunities really are endless.